Welcome to Parents Who Think. Danusia here, Danusia Malina-Derben. Now today, I'm bringing you another very personal and thought-provoking conversation. My guest is Rachel Pesso, brand designer and visual storyteller. We talk over her decision to not have children and the societal pressures and personal anxieties she has navigated along the way. It's a brave and honest discussion as she opens up about challenging conventional expectations, and we also celebrate the power of staying true to herself. Let's get started. Tell us a bit about where you stand about being a mother.
Actually, when you had originally asked me, my gut inside said, hell no, I'm not coming on here to talk about that. Like, nobody will be supportive or want to hear about it, because it feels like, the majority of people in this world are generally, want to be mothers, or that's more about what you hear about. So I felt at first total resistance to wanting to share why I don't want to have children.
Rachel, what were the feelings going on for you in that resistance? What's going on there?
There's a lot of fear. And actually, that's one of the main things that I think is great to talk about, because a lot of the times when it comes to the subject of being a mother, you often can be really judged very quickly when you say that you don't want to have children. When I first started discovering that I didn't want to have children, I had to have multiple conversations with my most loved friends and family. I mean, I had to tell my own mother probably about, I would say, 20 conversations before she actually started to believe me. But like, maybe she doesn't really want children.
Oh, that's outrageous, though.
Yeah, it's crazy. They don't want to accept it. I had originally told them, I don't think I want children. And their responses were, oh, you'll change your mind. Or a lot of people say that. And then in a few years from now, you'll just start wanting to have a baby. And there's no reason for it. And people will say things like that. So I felt really judged, to the point where I started thinking, should I just not tell people that? Like, I don't have to share it. I could just say, like, when people ask me if me and my husband are thinking of having children, I could just say, we're still thinking about it. Or, I could say all those like easy statements, but because of who I am, it's really hard for me to kind of just play that role, because my truth isn't that. And I think that many people probably go through this, even when they're maybe not sure, or there's kind of a shame around not wanting to have children. And I think for me, it's like there's even a fear that lives in there for myself. It's like, God, well, what kind of person am I being labeled as if I'm not wanting to be a mother?
Let's just put on the table really quickly, shall we? We could dance around this, but there's this big fat word, and it's selfish.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, when I had told my mom in a few of the conversations we've had, she told me that her father said, the only people that don't have children are selfish, and because people were put on this earth to recreate. Like when my mom said that to me, I was like, wow, how awful. Like, I thought to myself, like, I could cry. But I also thought, well, how selfish would it be for me to have children if it wasn't a hell yes for me?
Yeah.
I love children. I think, truthfully, I would be a wonderful mother, but it's more importantly that in my gut, in my insides, it's not a role I want to take on. And I think knowing that and taking it on anyway, just to please, I don't know whom, would be crazy. For me, it doesn't sit well when somebody tries to convince me that it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah. I'm guessing there's been quite a few people trying to convince you.
Yeah. Another reason for me not wanting children is I have anxiety. I know that I'm able to support and care for another human, but at what level? And there's so much fear in a lot of this decision in itself. Just, what will you face as a mother? What do you have to sacrifice?
What is it that you think it takes to be a mother?
Yeah, I think that when you have a child, they're your child forever, and you have to commit that amount of time for life. So for me, when it comes to sacrifice, it can be associated with time, and then also a little bit of freedom. I intuitively know that if I really wanted to have a business and travel and, have an amazing relationship with my husband. And I could accomplish all of those things while being a mother. But I also know that there is a difficulty in kind of creating that life. Because I know even some of my closest friends struggle so much with time to themselves and spending time to explore and create the life that they want outside of their children.
I'm guessing here, because I don't know your friends, but isn't that because they themselves have a model of what their children need? It's like there seems to be this kind of operating model of what children need in order to grow up and be functional these days. And a lot of that has shifted into inordinate amounts of time and extracurricular stuff. It's all coming through them as a channel out towards others with very, very little coming back in. And I don't know who would sign up for that a kind of model of motherhood. Quite honestly, I wouldn't, and I haven't. So I'm wondering, because it really does sound like there is this abiding version of motherhood that is pretty unpalatable to you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. So my model, again, my mother would never regret her decision to be a mother. And she obviously loves her children. I think that maybe she wasn't able to fully create her life and her dreams outside of her children. I didn't have that as a vision growing up. So again, like the decision to not be a mother, it has there's a lot of things that feel like, wow, well, what will my life be if I don't have children? So I'm still discovering all of that myself, like on an exploration of how and what to build my life around if it's not around children, because I think that, again, the model is build your life around your children. That's really I think most people's interpretation of mothers.
But Rachel, what you're saying is you don't want to give up on yourself.
Right.
You aren't seeing an appealing choice. You're seeing women who, once they're mothers, appear to have to give up on themselves, their dreams, their desires, all those kinds of things that you've mentioned. That's what you're seeing. And so it's like, that is not appealing. And there's this concept of what I like to call undeveloped selves. And so our children can feel the tension and they bear the grief of their mother's disappointment and frustration at her undeveloped self. There's a psychoanalyst called Jessica Benjamin, and she says, a mother who stifles her own longings, ambitions, and frustrations cannot tune empathically to her child's joys and failures. And I guess when we stunt our own longings and our ambitions, it's really, really, really difficult for us to enjoy thoroughly and fully our children's like freedom. Because that's, after all, as mothers, really our job is to obviously safeguard them, love them, set them up in terms of their independent skills, and see them go off into the world as functional young people. Mm. How about if you're not feeling like the biggest person you could be as a woman? I feel like there's the undercurrent of this in pretty well everything you're saying, you know?
Yeah, I think that's super true. And I think, like, in general, there is just so much pressure. So the pressure that we feel to have children for our parents, the pressure that we feel to have children to make other people feel more comfortable with our decision. So Pat is wonderful with children. I think he gets so much joy in just interacting with them. And I've had so many people say to me, like, oh my God, he'd be such an amazing dad. Look at him.
How could you, Rachel? I mean, how could you? Two things. How could you possibly let him down and not have him flourish as a father? And in fact, on top of that, what kind of woman are you? I mean, are you a real woman?
He's told me multiple times that it wasn't a hell yes for him. So, he's not going to push for something that he's also unsure about himself, which also he's judged for. It's a lot to navigate. And I think that we have been discovering as a couple what our life looks like without children. And, I've also had people say this to me more than on one account, like, who will take care of you when you're old?
Oh, yes, that's an old chestnut, that one, isn't it? That's a great one.
I'm going to have children so that way I have someone to take care of me when I'm old, really? And honestly, my best friends who are going to have children, I love them, and we can spoil their kids. We can do all these things that maybe will fulfill another part that we can't, fully fulfill without having children. I know there's so much love to be felt from having a child and what that provides for you. And I get it. But I personally would love to hear about people who decided not to have children and how their life is looking back on it. How will I feel when I'm, in 20 years from now? I'm not sure, but I'm not willing to just decide something based on that.
Yeah. It's really funny. I'm going to use this word, but it's not in a judgmental way. It's because I feel like it's sad that your decision not to have children is based on a fear of not being able to be the vibrant, big woman that you can be once you've had a child, the whole person that you want to be. I have a load of kids, as you know. I'm the exact opposite. I was telling a friend earlier that I'm really looking forward to speaking with Rachel Pesso. She's this amazing woman that I've worked with before in business and blah, blah, blah. And I said, one of the things that really strikes me, she'd be an amazing mother.
Yeah, I sometimes go back to this concept of just because you're good at something or would be good at something doesn't mean you should do it. And I think that there's a lot of power in that statement because I think even though my mother was wonderful, I think she may have had a bigger purpose. And I think for me, as I have this conversation, as I dive more into it, the fears come up. A lot of the fears are there because of the outer world. And when I really tune in, I really sit in silence and I call it meditate on this. And I think about what I want to do in the world. I think it doesn't include that. It doesn't include being a mother. And I think knowing that, it helps guide me on the right path for me. And I think that, again, I want to serve and impact so many people in my business and just in general in life. And I think that I have a lot to give and that part isn't sad, right? So I think that I totally hear you on wanting to change. I think in general, changing the model of motherhood, not just for people like me, but just for everyone, because there is so much that's possible. I know a woman who runs a business and she lives in Costa Rica and she travels and her children are with her all the time. And not in a bad way, nothing holds her back. And it's so inspiring to see. I think so many people will benefit from seeing more of that, seeing more of how a woman is living her truth and her dreams and really, truly wants to be a mother.
Yeah. This is such a wonderful, juicy, really honest conversation. I'm so grateful that you were brave enough and committed enough to yourself to share how you feel about this. I've no doubt that there'll be so much resonance for people, Rachel. I'm super grateful to you for this.
Thank you so much. Even coming on here, it's scary to really say these very scary truths or just feeling all of this. And to be honest, this is the first time I've had a really truthful, honest conversation about this without people giving judgments and their kind of opinions on where they think I should be or do and whatnot. So it really was beautiful to kind of just be able to have a conversation and just have you here questioning in a loving way, really wanting to understand it. It really means a lot.
Rachel's story reminds us that it's more than okay to challenge societal norms and make choices that align with our own values and aspirations. Whether you're considering motherhood or navigating other life choices, remember that self-discovery and personal growth are lifelong journeys. Embrace your truth and create a life that feels authentic to you. Thanks for being here, everyone. Until next time, keep thinking and loving. Take care.